All right, let's talk about one of the biggest gambles in the world of business. You see a massive opportunity in a new, fast-growing market, but it's completely unpredictable. What do you do? This is a high-stakes decision that can literally define a company's future.
Now, to guide us through this, we're leaning on some serious research from the University of Bath. They've done a huge review of the evidence, so we're getting a really solid look at the heart of this problem.
And believe me, the scale we're talking about here is just staggering. In one recent year, companies poured $765 billion of foreign direct investment into these emerging economies. That is a massive amount of cash flowing into places that are full of potential, but also full of risk. And that brings us right to the central mystery. When you're staring into that level of uncertainty, what's the play? Do you go big, commit huge resources, and try to build your own fortress to control everything? Or do you play it safe, make smaller bets, and keep an escape route open if things go bad? Let's dig in.
Okay, so to really get a grip on this gamble, first you have to understand the playing field. And the key concept, the thing that makes these markets so incredibly tricky, is something researchers call institutional voids. So what on earth are those? Well, institutional voids are basically gaps in the system. Think about everything a business just assumes it will have: trustworthy courts, reliable banks, good market data. In a lot of emerging markets, that stuff is either really weak or it just plain doesn't exist. It's kind of like trying to play a game of Monopoly, but half the rulebook is missing and there's no banker.
And this isn't some abstract academic idea. No. On the ground, this is the stuff that gives executives nightmares. It means you can't get good info on your customers. It means the government might just change the rules on you overnight. It means if your local partner cheats you, taking them to court might be a total waste of time. These are the real-world problems they're up against every single day.
So when you're facing all those challenges, what's the most logical reaction? Well, for a lot of people, it's to be cautious. And that brings us to the first major strategy we see in the research: just play it safe.
You can think of this as the dip your toe in strategy. The logic is super simple and honestly pretty compelling. When things are risky and unpredictable, you limit how much you put on the line, right? You don't just dive headfirst into water when you can't see the bottom.
So the name of the game here is minimizing your potential losses. The thinking goes like this. 1, these voids crank up your risks and your costs. 2, all that uncertainty means you absolutely need to be flexible. You've got to be able to pull out quick and cheap if things go sideways. So, what's the solution? A lower commitment. You use joint ventures, use licensing deals, anything to avoid sinking a ton of your own capital into the ground.
But, and this is where the whole story gets a fascinating twist, there's another group of people who look at the exact same set of problems and come to the complete opposite conclusion. They say you should go all in. This is what we can call the build your own fortress strategy. And the core idea is simple. If you can't trust the world around you to support your business, well, you're going to have to build that support system yourself. And to do that, you need more control, which means you need more investment, not less. See how the logic just flips on its head? The control argument says that in a world without reliable rules, relying on other people is the biggest risk of all. Just finding and managing local partners costs a fortune. And even worse, since you can't really enforce contracts, the risk of a partner just taking your technology or stealing your customers is sky high. So, what's the solution? You avoid partners completely. You go all in, build your own subsidiary, and maintain total control. So, we have two perfectly logical arguments that lead to completely opposite strategies: play it safe to stay flexible, or go all in to stay in control. So, what does the evidence actually say? Who's right? Well, here's the surprising verdict from all that research. The authors conclude that the knowledge on this is equivocal. Now, that's just the academic way of saying the evidence is totally mixed. There is no single right answer. It turns out there's strong support in the real world for both strategies. And this slide really breaks down why. It all comes down to what you're most worried about. The Play It Safe team focuses on how voids increase the overall market risk. So their main goal is flexibility, which naturally leads to lower investment. But the Go All In team, they focus on how voids increase transaction costs, basically the danger and hassle of dealing with partners. For them, the main goal is control, and that logically leads to higher investment. It's two different ways of looking at the very same problem. But hold on, the analysis doesn't stop there. The really cutting-edge thinking on this suggests that maybe we're all asking the wrong question.
Maybe we should stop looking at these voids as just risks we have to manage and start seeing them as something else entirely.
And this is the game-changing idea. What if these gaps in the market aren't just problems? What if they are actually massive business opportunities just waiting for someone to grab them? Instead of trying to work around the voids, what if the winning move is to work on the voids? You see, a company can get a huge competitive advantage by being the one that solves these problems. This could mean becoming what's called an institutional entrepreneur and literally creating a supply chain where one didn't exist before. Or it could mean inventing brand new business models to sell to the poorest customers. It could even mean partnering with the government to build the very roads or power plants the country needs. In this view, the voids themselves become the source of incredible value. And that leaves us with a really powerful final thought. Those very same institutional voids that make a market feel so risky and so unpredictable, they might also be the source of the greatest potential for profit and for impact. Maybe, just maybe, in the high-stakes world of global business, the biggest risks and the biggest opportunities are just two sides of the same billion-dollar coin.